Go ahead. All right, so welcome everyone. We are excited to have you here. Feel free to chime in with questions as we go. I'm going to drop this in the chat. All right, I see someone in the chat. Julie is excited to bring some of this to her middle schools. And that's one of the things that we'd love to see. Middle schools are a place that we're always looking for growth, and we have some great areas here for you to look at as you come up with your project plan. So as we jump in today, the objectives, we're going to try to get through it in that 30 minutes. And first, it's where do these program plans live in both the CTE Incentive Grant and K-12 SWP? And then how do I identify possible projects for my grant application, depending on where you're coming from. So we just wanted to reiterate that all of these programs are funded around career technical education. We have 15 different industry sectors that are identified by the state of California. And so this, if you're not familiar with this little image here, these are the sectors that all have standards aligned to them. And in each sector, you have individual pathways that are outlined. And then your whole program fits into one of these bullets for a pathway. So any of you who are maybe new to this work, I have a slide at the end too, that gives you a little bit of a deep dive into the intro of CTE world, because if you are here and you don't have any CTE, you probably need more than this one 30-minute webinar to jump into that deep end. We also wanted to just remind people a career pathway program is a lot more than an elective. This is something where we combine academic and technical coursework. We are aligning to our post-secondary partners. We really want our students to have opportunities to practice in the field, and funding like this really helps to build out your career pathway program into that sequenced courses that really focus on preparing and informing students about their future. We're going to dive first into a little bit on the CTE Incentive Grant. And so this diagram right here is the 11 elements of a high quality career pathway. You've heard a little bit about these elements, and you might have heard that there's also a 12 elements because the CTE Incentive Grant is legislated. In the legislation, it talks about the 11 elements. And so until that legislation changes, we're sticking with the 11 elements for these grants. You may see the 12 elements in other spaces like Perkins, but they have most of these elements are going to overlap. And so as you are working in that program evaluation and plan, you'll see CTEIG attachment 1, all it's about is those 11 elements. All right. So if you look at attachment 1, which is the self-evaluation. What you're going to see is first, in each one of those elements, sometimes there's like an A and a B, like right here, 1A, high quality curriculum and instruction aligned to CTE model curriculum standards. So here is where you're going to evaluate yourself. You might want to be a little bit generous, at least generous enough if you do have programs to get yourself to the 24-point mark, because that's how many points you need in order to be eligible for CTE Incentive Grant. You're actually going to go through here. You're going to go through and see where you're hitting all of these different targets. You add the evidence that they have given you examples of here. And then you talk here about all the areas of strength that you have aligned with this particular area. And then there's this box that says improvement opportunities and plans as aligned with the budget narrative worksheet, attachment 2. This box, once you kind of go through and you've, okay, I'm looking at curriculum instruction, here's my areas of growth, and you put your areas of growth here, that's really what becomes your plan. All right. So as you're doing the self-study, you are developing the plan for the work that you're going to do with these monies, and you will align this box here to your attachment 2. Basically anything that you want to pay for an attachment 2 needs to be mentioned here. All right. So there's a really strong connection between attachments 1 and 2. But the fun thing is everyone needs to do the self-study, whether you're going for CTEIG, K-12 SWP, even if you have no programs at all, you just have to click the part that says you don't have them, because you need to upload this no matter which set of funding that you are applying for. So let me come back to the slides. Again, that program evaluation and plan, required for both CTE Incentive Grant and K-12 SWP applications. It helps identify areas of growth, and that's where you're going to be looking at funding. And so as you're going through that, it's a really good opportunity for your team to come together and look at each one of those different elements and really be thoughtful about where are you now? What's your current status? Celebrate the things you're doing really well, and you're going to list those out in the areas of strength. Now, you don't want to be perfect, because if you were perfect, why would they give you any money? And so you also have to really be thoughtful about what does growth look like for you, and that's what's going to lead to your plan for the CTE Incentive Grant. And again, so that last box, when you're in the document, is where you see that improvement opportunities and plans, and that's where your plan lives. And it should explicitly state the proposed services that or budget items from attachment 2. So your budget and your plan are really talking to each other when it comes to the CTE Incentive Grant. As I said, in that self-study, you need a minimum score of 24. And you'll see a few different minimum score categories if you read through the RFA, because you need a minimum of 24 on your program evaluation. But there's other parts of the RFA. So when they get to the overall scoring, you need different minimums to be eligible to actually be funded. But this is a huge chunk of the overall score you get for that application. So this is really helpful for you to be, above 24. If you don't score at least 24, you are still eligible for K-12 SWP. You still need to finish that program evaluation because it gets uploaded into K-12 SWP. It's just not scored on that set of grants. It was one of the ways that they worked on aligning the application process for both of these, because they do understand that it is quite a lift for you to apply for both in the same season. So that's kind of the introductory piece on CTEIG. Any specific questions around where the project plan lives in CTEIG, or anything about the self-evaluation? All right.
Jewel.
Yes.
It's Julie. Hi, Jewel. Hi, Al. Thank you both for being here. So I was working with Ramona High School. I've just been hired as the counselor at our middle school. And so I've worked with the high school to write Perkins and our last round of K-12.
Mm-hmm.
So for our Perkins, we actually did, we did this, these elements of high quality program evaluation. We did 12 actually for the Perkins.
Yeah, but they're caught up to the new CTE state plan.
Right. So that was just in May that we did that, or April or May. So are those similar enough?
Yeah, so you will not be able to substitute those, but I think they'll really help you as you go for these ones. And if you did the last K-12 SWP, the self-study is the same. So you can pull your self-study from a previous year and then go through and make adjustments for the new year. Sometimes I like to have the old one up and then start a fresh one so that I'm not just copying and pasting everything. But if it's been really recently, you just did it last year, you may just go through your previous self-evaluation and verify that everything's the same, or make the adjustments. Hopefully it's not the same, because if they gave you money, to fix some of the things, hopefully some of the things that were in your growth have moved up into your strengths. And so you can use that. You can't use the 12 because it's not the same exactly. But if you go through here, and I can kind of, if I go back to, let me pull up the 11 elements. If we go back to the 11 elements, which I think was maybe slide 6, you'll see that these are very similar to the 12 elements.
Right. Okay. That helps.
So, unfortunately, Perkins is not at all aligned with these at this point. And so the thing would be, it would take a change in legislation for CTEIG to change this. And so for this year, we're definitely still sticking with the 11.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions so far?
I might add that if I was looking at my 21-22 and I was looking at it from the lens of a CTE teacher in that pathway that had been afforded grant funding on the 2021 or the 1920, when we look at this 2021 and now we're going into 2022, 2023, I would like to think that there's more stuff that would enhance my program. And so I saw Jill Austin's name here. So I'm thinking, wow, you got a Prop 51, back when Joe was over at Hoover, a Prop 51 building and construction trades class, facility built, and then you needed additional equipment. This was a funding source for that. And then here we are in 22, 23, and I just happened to be over there and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't see a lot of solar going on over here. Everything's solar right now. So I'm thinking if I'm the teacher, I would love to have a grant that would allow me to fund a extraordinarily opportunistic solar instruction, installation and service module for my building and construction trades pathway. Right. So I'm thinking, how do I keep improving my program if I'm in that particular space versus if I'm in a brand new space and I'm looking to really just get into the career technical education galaxy. So there's a playing field for everyone.
All right. And Adriana asked, the self-evaluation should be based on the 21-22 school year, correct? Yes. So that should be, and it's holistic. The self-evaluation is not about singular pathways. So as you look at all of your pathways, do you hit these different metrics? And so, maybe you'll have started a new pathway and you only have 1 year of the sequence and you don't have the second year built yet. As long as you have sequences in your other pathways, you're not having to mark yourself down for that. But this is where the advantage of having kind of a larger system is nice, because if you've got some that are kind of in the early stages that don't hit those 11 elements, as a program, you likely do. But I think that's helpful, Al, thinking about what were the new projects you funded last year and the year before and the year before that with all these grants, and how do you take those to the next level? And so as you move some of your growth areas up into your strengths, then your new imagining is about those fantastic new projects you have invested in and what is the next step for those.
Jewel, as grantees kind of strive to get to that 24, can those also be, instead of like, what's the next layer, could those also be like, hey, we almost got to the finish line, but here's how we take an area we were investing in 21-22 and get to the finish line, get it into an area of strength?
Say that again. I don't think
I'm thinking about like Al saying, hey, this is what we spent on in the years leading up to 21-22 or 21-22 included. This is where we want to go in 22-23. If you're looking back at programs that you've started that you had a goal to complete, or you thought you would end 21-22 with them being an area of strength, but you were not quite there. Not the entirety of the grant, but like, hey, we want to dedicate some of this 22-23 objective to getting this completely into the strength column.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. We have seen unprecedented amounts of barriers in the last few years. So the fact that we have grant funding that we applied for before COVID, and then now we haven't done all the things we said we would, I don't think that is a terrible thing. In the strengths, you could talk about the progress. We made progress towards this goal, and then now we're really excited to bring it over the finish line with this next set of grant funds. So I don't think anyone will be surprised that you did not accomplish everything in the face of what we've been after.
We'll throw some solar in there too, just so Al doesn't feel like I wasn't listening.
Perfect.
That's all I needed.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about K-12 Strong, and then I do want to make sure that you see some of the resources for you to come up with ideas for your plan. So they actually provide a work plan template. And again, I've been pasting, in case anyone's new, this is the link in the chat goes to these slides so that you can access all of these documents. So whoops, here's the work plan template. No, it's not. Let me just open it again. Sorry about that. So the work plan template is a little bit different because it's going to be separated into 4 different categories. And each of those 4 categories asks the same 5 questions. All right, so you see curriculum and instruction, describe the work you want to fund, list the projects and activities, identify your partner roles, and identify number of students or teachers served. And number 5 is describe activities. And then you go on to describe the work to, the college and career exploration, and you have the same 5 questions. All right, so it feels really repetitive depending on if you're going to apply for all of these. Now, the deal is that you could just pick one of these strategies. You could pick 2 of the strategies. You could pick all 4 of the strategies. It doesn't actually matter how many of these you apply for. So if the work you're doing does feel like it could live in multiple and you can condense it into just 1 or 2 of them, it may cut down on how much writing you have to do and kind of that alignment for your budget to the different work plan areas. And so as you look at these 4, one of the really interesting things is that they align really closely to the career development continuum that has been, that is part of the regional plan from our community colleges. So here's how I recommend that you do your own kind of quote unquote self-study for K-12 SWP. Follow the continuum. So let's look at the high school, that one's middle school. Let's look at the high school continuum, and I'm gonna paste this straight into the chat. So if you wanna look, because I know these are really small. So each of these continuum documents are 4 pages. We have one about curriculum. We have one about career research and planning. We have one about work-based learning, and we have one about post-secondary engagement. So if we compare that to the different categories in our project plan that we have, CNI, college and career exploration, post-secondary transition, right, that alignment, and work-based learning, this is really a gold mine for coming up with which of those categories you are wanting to apply for. So the fun homework activity that you can do that is the easy version of your own self-study is get 2 highlighters, take a green highlighter and highlight all the things you're already doing. Take an orange highlighter and highlight all of the areas that you would like to expand into. If you've got a lot of orange on one of these pages, you can make a plan that's aligned to that part of the K-12 SWP. And the beautiful thing is this continuum is part of our regional plan, and you're required to align to that. So by creating your school, your plan for K-12 SWP based on the career development curriculum, too many words, the career development continuum, you are providing that alignment because you will have to speak to that alignment as part of your application. So those documents, I put the high school one there, the middle school one I'm going to also drop in because I know some of you are middle school specific, but these are great ways for you to explore the projects that you might want to include in your grant application, particularly for K-12 SWP, but it can also inform what you're doing for your self-study and for CTE Incentive Grant. This might be, it's a little bit of a faster activity because you're just highlighting, you don't have to type all of your things. Nobody cares. You do not have to upload a highlighted version of this. This is my own like assignment to you to give you a hands-on something to really inspire the projects that might make a change in the work that you're doing. All right, so that would be a good way to do this. Now, that regional plan, you are required to align to it. So it's linked right here. And if you click on these links, it actually will take you to the page of the regional plan where it talks about K-12 SWP alignment. All right, because that's what we are doing. So that's on page 26. And you can see you want to use that research and evidence-based solutions, improve your collaboration with industry with that focus. That's the difference. K-12 SWP really wants to see tight alignment with our high wage, high demand industry sectors and programs. So you want to pull all of that labor market information. Yesterday, there was a little Q&A session and there's a pre-recorded session on LMI for our region that you will want to look at. If you're not familiar with that, you can tap into the Center of Excellence. You can tap into SCWP to do that. You want to align the curriculum and instruction to the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed by employers. They call those KSAs, and they're that employer version of standards, all right? So I like to change our language sometimes about what we want our students to learn and think about, well, what are the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities? You want to increase the access. Also, this is also about special populations. And so you'll see that K-12 SWP outlines specifically your need to address special populations and their needs as part of the plan. So be really thoughtful about that. And I'll be giving a webinar next Tuesday on using the college and career indicator data in the back to really identify special populations that may be an area that you want to focus on for these applications. And then also leveraging strong workforce wherever you can. You're like, but this is strong workforce. That's right. The colleges also have strong workforce, and then we have K-12 strong workforce. So sometimes there's a little confusion, but if you see strong workforce without the K-12 in front, that is the basically CTE funds for the community colleges. And then we are here with our K-12 strong. Feel free to read through these 27 pages or at least pretend like you read them before you apply for this grant, so you can see what our colleges are really focused on and see where you can align your work to their work. All right, questions about the program plan on the K-12 SWP side of things?
Hi, it's Julie again.
Great.
So at the middle school, funded by a previous round of SWP, they've implemented Zello over there, which is the career exploration tool.
Yep.
So that's about it. Ultimately, the vision is to create a CTE wheel there at the middle school. But I don't know if a year and a half, 2 years is enough time to do that. So would we start this next round with work-based learning, with field trips, with more getting students exposed to what CTE is like, what it is, getting them excited about it, and maybe in another round applying for money to implement a wheel? Or is now the time to write that in?
Well, I would say some legislation that comes next year may shift funds in a way that makes it maybe better to apply for it this year. So K-12 SWP is currently, they're considering in the future combining it with CTE Incentive Grant. But as we looked at, it's harder for someone who doesn't have a program to get CTEIG money. And also you guys are one district K-12, so you can apply for CTEIG across the district and use some of those funds in your middle school. But CTEIG needs a CTE credential in order to spend that money, whereas K-12 SWP actually says you need to be skilled. And so there's a little more flexibility, particularly if you're looking at that middle school wheel where you have like CalPADS code 9236. It's a really specific code that I have on a whiteboard on my desk just so I never forget about it, that you can use for a non-CTE teacher so that the CTC doesn't flag them as out of their area of work, right? So I would say if you want to launch that, don't wait, right? Because you're never going to get to a point where it's perfect timing. The expenditure period for K-12 SWP is like longer than the expenditure period for CTE Incentive Grant. So I do believe you could get an entire year in, like if you got the money so that next fall you started that program, you could get an entire year in where you've gotten the equipment, you've gotten a teacher figured out, you have the whole system, you've got the alignments to the high school, so you are busing them back and forth. Maybe the high school students are coming down into the wheel to help support that teacher. You know, this would be a great time to do it. I never really say wait, because then a year from now you'll ask the same question. So that would be my side. How about Al? Al, you have any ideas over there?
Oh, I always say go. And there's always champion teachers, there's always champion administrators in a district. And I just go back to my days working with Joe in our previous life. As long as you have someone that's willing to do the lift, we can usually take care of the housekeeping, the credentialings and all of that stuff. So if you want to, we know that middle school exploration, you can do some of it without a CTE credential. The next level is to get the credential. So there are partners out there that have great units. You mentioned the onboarding was Zello. So Zello is, you know, the platform, career exploration, good stuff. There's a number of folks that do that. And then the next level, of course, is this club. The next level, of course, can I get a section? Maybe it's a Paxton Patterson or a Project Lead the Way. Not hard to get a science teacher, math teacher credential. So there's this staircase you can follow that as long as there are leaders that make it comfortable for teachers to go on the journey, especially when you're asking them sometimes to get another credential, and they understand that we can reimburse them for the credential. As long as there's someone that's willing to go on the journey, we can get you there. And
I will say, you don't reimburse for a credential because that would be a gift of public funds, but you may provide a professional learning stipend that supports someone who is willing to get that credential, which may happen to fund that credential itself.
We definitely will take care of the word.
In that project.
Yeah, the word jigsaw we'll take care of, but rest assured, as a person that's willing to, why am I going to stop teaching science to teach one section of career exploration? Well, we want them to know that, yeah, we are encouraging in the CTE space multiple subject and single subject teachers to get engaged. And one of the ways we can do that is we can get some of the credentialing things addressed. And so the journey is something that, as long as you have champion leaders and champion teachers, we can help them along the way. And you are asking all the right questions, indicating that your counseling office has already brought in and basically shot the first shot across the bow with Zello.
So we have a couple of questions coming in. I'm going to zip through just 3 slides and then we can answer. I'll stay as long for answering questions. But I did want to point out, if you're new to program development, like I said, you're not going to be able to build a program out of this 30-minute webinar. But you can think about we heard about the wheel or career exploration opportunities. At a high school, if you're brand new, you're going to need to find that beautiful combination of somebody who has either a CTE credential or industry experience, so they're eligible for that credential, a pathway that students are interested in, and that industry actually needs people in, and not space, equipment, and facilities. But we actually have some pathway development resources on our website already, and that's a great place to start, and then schedule a meeting with Al or myself, and we can definitely support you through new pathway development. And this is the last slide, and then I'll just do all the fun Q&A and look at this. Because right now it is 2:30 and we are kicking off a session virtually for the CTE Incentive Grant. And so I'm gonna drop that in here. If you want to go to that whole application preparation workshop, Phyllis will be walking folks through the CTEIG. You probably do already have the schedule for the season, but here are all of our grant sessions that are coming up, and we will post the video of this there shortly. And if you are a little overwhelmed and want to join our consortium application for middle schools and charters or small LEAs, we have an info session for that on the 8th. And so here is the September 8th session. And our contact information is here as well. So now I will go to Q&A. Sorry to delay, but I did want to make sure anyone who's leaving saw the last few slides. So thank you for joining us if you are out of here. All right, so I'm gonna go check out the chat. I see Joe is trying to convince people to leave their district to come and work with him. Oh, maybe to just visit. Thanks. I thought you were in here. I know it's really hard to find teachers these days, so there is some poaching that happens from time to time.
Wow, Joel, that's low. Trying to help.
Hey, Poway poached one of ours. It's no hard feelings. It happens sometimes. Anyway, so can we write the application to ask for a non-site based employee, as Carl's asking? We're teacher heavy from past grant funding, but admin like to support teachers. This is a hard section. So sometimes you see more people getting counselors, I feel like, or sometimes like a teacher on special assignment to help support things. Al, what have you seen in the form of funding administrators with either of these grants?
I've never seen that. But I think the model is counselors and teachers on special assignment because you want to see it at the classroom level. I have seen some classified support when it comes down to admin assistants and things of that nature, but I've actually not seen an example of an administrator. But I guess you can't rule it out.
I will say too, we do see in some of our smaller LEAs that they can give that distributed leadership to have a teacher on special assignment, a TOSA, or whatever the words that you use in your space are for that, to do some of these tasks and activities, or that you might have a district-wide CTE counselor who also helps with some of the grant writing and management. So it would just be to refer to their contract and how other folks on special assignment are treated to ensure that whatever you're writing for them to do matches what they would be allowed to do.
And it also depends on which application. I think in the SWP, they understand more because they really are San Diego County sensitive, versus CTEIG, that would be probably, when you're looking at all the applications up and down the state, I'm sure people have written an application and requested that, and yet I haven't heard of a lot of districts that have been granted a CTE administrator.
Well, Leslie does, she messaged me that there is a budget example from the CTE that does show admin funding. So this might be a good question too for Brian Baker, if you're working with him, because he's your CTEIG focus, your CTEIG person, technically your technical assistance provider. And then Leslie for K-12 SWP, or your pathway coordinator may be able to help identify. But if you were doing something like that, it's definitely not a whole person, but you may be able to allocate percentages. Adriana, I know you've had your hand up for a while. I'm sorry about that.
Hi, good afternoon, no worries. I wanted to follow up on what you mentioned with the middle school wheel. What code did you say that was? 9036?
Oh, so 9236 is the CalPADS code for a middle school wheel. You can't use your regular CTE funding on that, but you should be able to consider using K-12 SWP if it's written that way and you're approved. So that is a CalPADS code that you can use for a middle school wheel that doesn't get triggered by the CTC as someone who's outside of assignment if they don't have a CTE credential.
Oh, okay, so that was going to be my next question. So this person only needs to be skilled in something in career technical education. They don't have to have a credential. Would this be part of a pathway, or it wouldn't then? It wouldn't be part of the 300 hours?
No, middle school can't be part of the 300 hours anyway. So that's set that aside. And middle school can only have introductory courses, which does not contribute to the 300 hours required for a pathway completer. A pathway completer has to complete a concentrator and capstone course within those 300 hours and pass with a C- or better. So middle school never counts towards pathway completer status. CalPADS doesn't even roll that data up. So you're really looking at, you can create an introductory course at the middle school that's all around one subject. And then they can go, in high school straight to concentrator. Although they don't have to have the intro class, you can always start a concentrator. Or if you're talking about a wheel, then that could be the wheel. In order for that to work, actually has to be in multiple sectors. So you cannot have like a wheel that only does an engineering wheel. Technically, it's supposed to be like a mix. So they do some engineering, some ICT, and health. Or,
unless you have that credential.
Yes, unless you have the credential that matches an introductory course.
So I have a school that's interested in doing a pathway in ag, starting it in the middle school with an intro course, but that's totally separate from like CTEC funding, that's just mainly for their agriculture funds that they need more than the 300 hours. So it doesn't really.
That makes sense.
Okay, so,
okay.
But it wouldn't necessarily count for the 300 hours needed.
No, so middle school doesn't count towards your 300 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You want them taking 2 sequence courses at the high school level.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.